question, I was like, oh shoot, I don't have as much time left, and so I kind of went through it quickly, and then when all the answers look the same, similar, it's
Yeah.
like, you're just like, so I was wondering if there's a way to do these questions, like, if there's a, like, kind of a secret to them that I'm not seeing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm glad you actually brought this up now because I didn't really want to share this with the class. This is more just for us. You're going to hate my answer, but I think it's true. The fastest way to get through these questions is to have an intuitive understanding of the passage.
Okay.
To the extent that you can. Now, there are some cases where you have very formulaic answers up front, but they tend to be even shorter than this. And I might see something like, let's say you had an argument that said, some people should do this and some people should do that, or some people should do this and most people should do that, therefore some people should do this. Well, in my head I'm thinking, okay, I got a sum and a most in the premises and I got a sum in the conclusion. So you might be able to scan down the answers and be like, are there any that don't have a sum and a most in the premises? Because that's something we had, you know. Sometimes that can help you go fast through these. But in general, I know you feel pressed for time, but the difference between reading and understanding the passage and just reading it quickly, is that you kind of skimmed it? Or did you even read it?
I did read it, and then I think I picked D, and I think it's like how they switch the words, and I don't, you know what I mean? It's like at a certain point they all look kind of the same, even though they're not.
See, I think if you had taken like 15 more seconds and like just gotten to the point where you actually felt comfortable with the passage, it might have been easier.
Okay.
I mean, we'll have to see.
Yeah.
We can talk about it, but yeah, Chaz?
Do you suggest skipping these parallel reasoning questions if they're like really late in a section?
I don't have a problem with that if you skip it right away.
Right.
Like,
that's what I mean. Like you see, you're like, all right, this can take me a lot of time. On to the next one.
Right.
yeah, like if you're on the last 2 pages, then you don't have to go back. A lot of times people will skip these earlier on, and I feel like earlier on they tend to be easier.
Right.
You have to go back and find them. Like I don't really care what order you do the questions on the last page. So if you want to skip, if you don't like parallel reasoning, then you could skip that. I think it's one though that can be a lot faster than we think, especially if we intuitively understand the passage. Because sometimes I'll start reading the first sentence of an answer choice and I'll be like, nope. So, you know, you look at it and you're like, oh, I have to read all 6 of these arguments, the original argument, and 5 more arguments. No, a lot of times you only have to read the first sentence of 3 of the answer choices. So it actually doesn't end up being as long. But you can only do that if you really feel good about the argument. Otherwise, you don't have the confidence to be like, no, that's not right. So for this one, let's try to understand it intuitively. Sound good? So we'll take that advice and hopefully it works. The only songs M has ever written are blues songs and punk rock songs. So in other words, what? She's
Only writes blues and punk rock.
yes. And to put it differently, what does this mean about her?
She doesn't write any other.
That's right. And that's the kind of thing I'm doing to try to understand this intuitively. Like if you can say the same sentence in 2 different ways, then your mind gets more wrapped around that idea, right? You're like, I really get what's going on here, right? So she only writes these 2 types. She's never written anything else. That's what they're saying so far. Most punk rock songs involve no more than 3 chords. So most of one of these things has a certain characteristic. Is that all? All punk rock songs?
No.
Most. So there's some that might have more than 3, but most have 3. So far, so good? So, what does that mean?
That's the conclusion, right?
Conclusion. If the next song that she writes is not a blues song, if it's not one of the 2 that she writes, it probably will not involve more than 3 chords.
Because it will be a punk rock.
It'll be a punk rock, and most punk rock
songs
don't have more than 3 chords. Valid, invalid?
Valid.
Valid because of what word in the conclusion?
Probably.
Probably, which is the same as most, right? It sounds good. So then it says the reasoning in which one of the following arguments is most similar to the argument above. Parallel reasoning, not surprising, as opposed to parallel flaw, because it's a valid argument. So let's go through these. The only pets that the G family has ever owned are fish and parrots. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Most parrots are very noisy. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if the next pet the family owns is a parrot, what do you think?
It will be noisy.
Hold on. What did the original do? Said
It said it will, if it's not this, then it's not that.
So if it's not the one we didn't talk about, if it's not, so to be correct, answer choice A would have had to say, if it's not what?
If it's not a fish.
If it's not a fish, so then we get that, so that means, in other words, if it's a parrot. So answer choice A like skipped right to affirming parrot rather than denying fish. We're out of here. Sound good?
Okay.
We don't even need to read the rest of it.
Mm-hmm.
B, most parrots are very noisy. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they can reorder premises, right? No problem.
Right.
The family has never owned any pets other than fish and parrots. Good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and notice what they did here. They said this sentence in a way that we translated the first sentence of the original.
Right.
I bet a lot of people would get rid of this answer choice because it doesn't have the phrase the only.
Even though it's saying that they only own fish and parrots.
It's basically saying they only own
Yeah, they
fish.
do.
So it's saying the exact same thing, but because it uses a different way of saying that, some people might get rid of this answer choice. They would be fine because it's wrong. I think. Actually, I don't remember if it's right or wrong, but I have a feeling it's wrong.
It's wrong because it uses the past tense.
At the beginning, wrote of it for the wrong reason, right? Really, at this point, we should be
Right.
keeping this answer.
Right.
So, if the family has ever owned a noisy pet, boom, we're out of here, right? That's not the same.
Yeah.
Okay? Because they talked about the next one. This is talking about the past. Keep going. C, all the pets the family has ever owned have been fish and parrots. Good? Bad?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yes.
This is the same, right?
Yes.
If it's saying all the ones they have owned are these two, that's the same as saying the only ones they've ever owned are these two. Because remember, the only, it means all. You guys remember that from the book, too?
Mm-hmm.
It's the exception. Anyways, most parrots are very noisy. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Most of one of the things has a characteristic. So before I even read the answer or the conclusion, what should it say? So
the next, so if the next animal they own is a fish
not
or
is a
is
fish.
a parrot,
No,
no, is not.
is not a fish.
fish.
To get us back to parrots,
Right.
right? So it says, so any pet the family ever owns that is not a fish. What do you think?
Well, the not a fish noisy part is right, but it's using it's not like the next pet.
It's like anyone from here
Yeah.
on out forever. Bad. D, every pet the family has ever owned has been a fish or a parrot. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
Most parrots are very noisy. So far, so good. So if the next pet the family owns is not a parrot, what do you think?
Yeah. No,
No.
because it needs to be not a fish.
Why does it need to be not a fish?
Because the parrot is noisy, so the noisy needs to stay the same, and for the noisy to stay the same, then it has to be. Well, I mean I picked this and it makes sense, but it's not parallel.
It's not parallel. What they did is they said, this family owns only two things.
Mm-hmm.
Then it talked about one of them, and the conclusion was, well, if you're not the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this said, let's talk about parrots, and then say, if you're not a parrot. It needs to say, if you're not a fish,
Mhm.
the other, whatever that is, right?
I think with these, I tend to forget, it needs to be the same reasoning and not just a true answer at the end. Correct?
Wait, hold on. This is the same. We're looking for the same reasoning.
No, that's what I'm saying for these, because I think with my issue with this is it'll be oh, D, that's true, but it's not the same
Oh.
reasoning, and that's why it's wrong.
So actually, for answer choice D, so if the next pet the family owns is not a parrot, it will probably not be very noisy. That's not valid. Because although most parrots are very noisy, what's true about most fish?
They're not.
We don't know.
Right?
We have
We
no
don't know.
idea.
Yeah.
Alright, they might, someone could then say, and by the way, most fish are very noisy, so this family usually has noisy animals.
Mhm.
Right? What's true about most parrots has no bearing on what's true about
Right.
most fish. So, okay. Answer choice E. The family has never owned any pets other than fish and parrots.
Mhm.
Good. Most parrots are very noisy. Good. So the next pet the family owns will probably be very noisy if it is not a fish. How did they try to trick us here?
Switch on
They-
order.
Yeah, because it's if it is not a fish. Yeah.
They switched the order of the if then
Yeah.
in the conclusion, but that doesn't have any bearing on the logic of the claim as long as the if clause is still the if clause and the then clause is still the then clause, right? Chaz, you cool with this one?
Yeah.
Cool. Alex? Yeah? Okay. Any other questions on this one? Yeah.
I was gonna say for the next one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Go